Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Daily Dispatch. Hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. We're going to be talking about what occurred in the market today. Overall, we're seeing some choppiness, some consolidation, basically at these all-time highs for the S&P 500 index, along with a lot of choppiness for some of the other stocks we've been talking about, and Palantir cooling off a little bit at these record highs. This is typically a good thing, especially after this big rally, and considering we're kind of at this point right now, this kind of teeter point. And the question is, what's going to be the next catalyst to help push the broader market up to that next leg, past that 6,300 resistance point. We do have some more tariff uncertainty. Of course, when do we not have that on a weekly basis, being released from the administration? These are more negotiation tactics, in my opinion, but still causes uncertainty in the market and some hesitancy, which I think kind of correlated with some of the choppiness that we had. So before we get into it, getting into the weekend here, if you're a new or returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos. Let's do a quick weekly recap before we all enjoy the weekend. If you pop it up on the screen here, Palantir closes at 153.52, basically down about 0.3% in the day, hanging out here. We know that Palantir had this great reversal at this 130 and continued to have this kind of stair step up momentum, pushing to these new all-time highs at 155, and is now kind of consolidating above this point. Remember, this 150 zone was a psychological, a physical resistance point that was touched a few times before eventually breaking through. And I think if we get consolidation here, kind of how Palantir historically has traded, consolidation above this 150, this resistance could be flipping to a support level if this continues to cool off at these levels. One important thing to know with Palantir in the after hours right here, down about 62 cents, nothing crazy like that. But we do know its valuation is high, though it's been disconnected from that because Palantir still continues to climb, and all those value-oriented investors who decided, hey, I'm going to sit in the sidelines because it's too overvalued. I mean, look at the gains that they've missed out on. So yes, we need to, take valuation, I think, with some concern. However, I don't think it's the main story in this equation, especially with the top competitor like Palantir. And we've talked about this before. And the big thing is, what's the next move for Palantir? And that's leading up to earnings here, which is coming up in just a few weeks, August 4th on the post market. Revenue estimates at $939 million with earnings per share of about 14 cents. Now, one thing about Palantir's earnings that, for as a fair warning, is they are priced for perfection. And fortunately, Palantir has been able to smash their earnings for the previous multiple quarters. So the fact that they're priced for perfection, the risk for downside potential, of course, always remains high for Palantir. But in the long term, in terms of, whatever your time horizon is, 150 could seem like a price that you're okay with if you're in for Palantir for the next 5 to 10 years. In the short term, though, you do have earnings coming up. And like I said, this is where we're going to see increased volatility. So make sure you keep that kind of on the back burner as you're looking at this stock going forward. But nonetheless, congrats to the bulls. Things looking very well. We'll continue to see how this consolidates and how this plays out into next week if it does hold the 150. If we do see this holding here and macroeconomic data looks good, we're seeing a push past that 6,300 resistance point. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. That is where Palantir, I think, could continue its run up to about 160, 170. We still have about half the year of 2025 to go through. It's crazy that it's already July, but also crazy that it's, we still got half a year to go. So awesome to see there. Another stock that's been running like crazy, Robinhood. My God, Robinhood has been on an absolute tear. A lot of people questioning, when is Robinhood going to pull back? We see Robinhood get up here to about 114 today, closing at 109. And ever since it's held over this $100 zone here, and it only held above for a few days, consolidated basically for a few days until it accelerated into that next leg up. We're seeing a lot of call volume coming in at the 115 and at the 120, and there was anticipation today that Robinhood could possibly be included into the S&P 500, but we have Block XYZ entering the S&P 500 over Robinhood, and I agree with that. So what's the fade? Why is the S&P 500 committee, why are they fading on Robinhood? I think this kind of happened, the same thing with Palantir. And we're getting to this point where, hey, it's probably not a matter of if it's going to get included to the S&P 500, but more of a matter of when. So sitting here, and you got to think that we still have S&P 500 inclusion for Robinhood as a big catalyst that can help give it a next leg up. And historically, well, we've seen about 5 to 6% gains in these individual stocks when they get included into the S&P 500. But we're starting to see some traders that are kind of hoping for a pullback, probably because they want to re-enter at some cheaper prices. We know Robinhood currently on the swing, continues to grow. We'll see what happens. This stock has just been on a run up like Palantir, where it seems like it's not going down. In terms of the disruption in their execution in the fintech world, it kind of makes sense on why they are being, a groundbreaker right now. But we'll see, of course, what happens to the price action here over the next few weeks. Looking into the market, we see the Dow closing more than about 100 points lower. Of course, like I said, you have this uncertainty about Trump seeking at least 15% tariff on EU imports. And currently what you're seeing with the S&P 500 index is literally, we saw it teetering around that 6,300, is at 6,296. So right below that 6,300, down 0.01%, so basically at 0%, broke even on the day, consolidating and just sitting here. And this isn't too bad considering that we've seen the S&P 500 have a recent momentum push and a good rally. So cooling off here is healthy for the stock, especially as these tariffs are, kind of Trump demanding this minimum tariff of between 15 to 20% on any deal with the European Union. With this, I think these are just negotiation tactics. As we know, the EU is attempting to reach a trade deal with the U.S. ahead of the August 1st deadline. And that's where Trump basically vowed to begin implementing those 30% tariffs. So as we sit here, it's going to be, another what's going to be happening with, is this a type of taco trade? What's the negotiation going to be? And then is the market going to like that when they officially reach a trade deal? Because now they have this uncertainty of the 30% that is behind them. I think Trump is pretty smart, and the administration is pretty smart in trying to secure these deals. And it seems like these threats of high tariffs have been walked down historically. I mean, that's what we saw with the whole initial tariff drop when the market came down about 20%. So traders pouring in here. You also have earnings reports of the few companies. 12% of the S&P 500 companies have reported quarter two results. 83% have beaten those estimates. So one big thing here is that the market, I think, has kind of priced in all these uncertainties with tariffs. Yes, you're going to see some volatility, but I think in the grand scheme of things is that the market's kind of getting used to all these threats on tariffs that are being casted out by the administration. So I don't know if it's going to be reacting as volatile as it previously did. One of the bigger catalysts for the market that I'm keeping on my watch is, like I mentioned before, quarter two earnings. Well, we are seeing some of the bigger companies, Netflix here, sliding about 5% after the company said its operating margin in the second half will be lower than 3%, lower than the first, and then 3M fell more than 3%. One of the big things from terms of political basis, we also have Trump tweeting out here a piece of financial legislation. Trump talking about how, as an industry, the crypto industry, that they were mocked, and thank you for persisting and never giving up. And we've seen a very bullish administration towards crypto with the recent passing of all the different types of bills that can help with stable coins, regulations, clarity, and basically incorporating crypto into the current financial system. So good for the crypto bulls right there. We see politics continuing to play a big part of that. One of the big things, semiconductor stocks, NVDA, also sitting at around these record highs right here, basically choppiness in the market and consolidating for the day. Some of the other stocks that we've been keeping track on the watch list, same thing. Not a ton of movement. We have ASTS that we've kind of been talking about cooling off here at these all-time highs at 58. We saw this breakout here over these all-time highs. We're seeing a lot of investors and traders that are predicting that ASTS in the short term right here could go up to possibly mid-60s, even touching 70. We'll see what happens. Nebius, currently consolidating. You can see here at 52s, wants to break through that all-time high at about that 55 right there, or that recent all-time high. And you have Oklo gapping up a little bit here at 68.98. The stock had made a very good recovery after sitting here in the 50s. One of the big things that we're seeing is healthcare is continuing to decline in terms of the market capitalization of their stocks. We've seen this with United Health Group, and then of course a smaller market cap, Oscar, which a lot of people retail took quick attraction to, and then once it kind of popped above that 20, we've seen nothing but selling, and this is coupled with a lot of analyst downgrades and a lot of people saying, hey, Oscar, is it going to be entering this full capitulation type of move? Are we going to see a reversal here soon? Because Oscar's now down to like 13 to 14 bucks, and I mean, UNH here is now down to 282. This is getting pretty low compared to its initial drop where we saw it at like around this 250 area. So sub 300 UNH, if they can execute, that could be an amazing kind of low risk. I mean, it's a healthcare industry trading at a low PE. It's an interesting take here. I'm going to be keeping my eyeballs on him. That's all what I have for you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll touch base again on Sunday before the market opens or when the overnight session opens with futures, and get some rest. Peace out.